Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over the market. Let's talk about what's happening, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market is open, as the market is trading, including sometime, I think it was this morning when Tesla right here, 4 hours ago, or like noon-ish, you can say, where we had essentially that gap fill and that kind of sell-off, around noon that was happening on Tesla stock. I was here with members telling them all about it, saying how we're pretty much right at that gap fill, right at the bottom of what looks to be a bullish flag, etc. And well, if you go to the 1 hour chart on Tesla, which that was a 1 hour time frame share, yeah, I think that was a pretty good call so far, right? Not too shabby. This was literally right here and we're all the way up here. So hey, not too shabby. So again, I constantly share my thoughts, post updates. All it is $3 a month. That's all it is. For all my Tesla updates, options flow, etc. $5, of course, adds NVIDIA to that as well if you're interested. And for $7 a month, you also get access to my non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA charts as well that I share with members. And on the weekend, I do chart requests as well on Discord. So definitely check it out if you're interested. A lot of pretty good stocks there too. I mean, Uber's been a pretty good one here. Hood. MACD, right, has been pretty good as well. And there's been a few others as well. So, hey, again, link is below, guys. We'll also have you there. But jumping into a Tesla, down about 1.12%, closing at $335.50 per share, which compared to the market is going to be a little bit of an underperformance by Tesla stock here today. But, not completely unusual, right? Why is it not completely unusual? Because like I mentioned, we should be more potentially getting more chop, right? Yesterday, I was mentioning how we could be in this kind of, potential, some kind of bullish formation, pennant, flag, whatever, right? And I was saying it could look something like this initially, right? Something like that, which it could have, right? It could have. But again, I was also mentioning how it was just too early still. It's, still premature to kind of jump to conclusions in terms of what kind of pattern we're setting up. We don't have enough data yet, right? We need more candles, more price action essentially, right? And now we're getting more of that price action. Now we're starting to set up something that could look pretty nice here. So instead of being kind of more like a wedge sort of pennant, if you will, type formation, seems more like a flag type formation, sort of a downward channel, right? Where essentially, again, if we just zoom out on the 1 hour here, right here, you can see nice, beautiful, aggressive move to the upside. And what are we doing now? Well, we're starting to, you can see, especially once we started breaking out, you can see the candles down here on the 1 hour. As we were breaking out, right? As we were breaking above this range, the volume on the 1 hour increased. Now, granted, the volume could have been higher for sure, but hey, still a jump nonetheless. So there's that, right? But what else did we see? Well, we also saw now, as we're consolidating downwards, the volume is continuing to decrease and decrease and decrease. We're getting lower and lower and lower volume as we're consolidating. Pretty standard stuff in terms of what a bull flag usually looks like. You kind of break out on this elevated volume, and then you consolidate on slowly decreasing volume, and then you most likely get one more pop, maybe even a good pop here. Honestly, technically speaking, if you want to look at the kind of that rough measurement as to where this can potentially go. Usually what you do is you take the pole roughly, which is this right here. So this was the bottom. We pretty much rallied pretty aggressively to the upside. Now we're obviously getting a consolidation. So from down here to up here, right, that's the pole of the bull flag. And then roughly where we break out, again, we're assuming here, but let's just say for fun, demonstrational purposes, we're breaking out, I don't know, sometime early next week, I don't know, at 342, just as an example. Let's just say it happens. Well, you can see the measured move takes us all the way up to about $388. Again, roughly. Again, if you take these with a grain of salt, it's not like, oh my God, it's the the perfect measurement ever. Just a rough depiction. Maybe it doesn't even do this. Who knows? But usually this is a rough way that you measure bull flags, right? The pole itself. And guess what? Where does this 388 take us? Well, if I go back to the daily, guess what range this right here is that we rejected at many times before? Remember this place up here? Remember all this up here? Right? Guess what all of this leads to? Guess what that level is? 388, the mid 380s, almost to perfection. So, technically speaking, if this actually plays out and this plays out in like true bullish fashion, this would be my upside target, within the next, I don't know, few weeks, however long it takes. I don't know how long it's going to take, but if we truly get bullish momentum, yeah, this would be my upside target, which even from here, right? Even if let's say you bought it, I don't know, let's just say 335 right around here, give or take, and you hold it up to about that measured move, that's about a 15% move, right? That's pretty respectable in my opinion. So again, one step at a time. We're not jumping to conclusions here, right? We have still yet to actually break out, right? So, just because we're forming the pattern, it doesn't mean that the pattern is going to play out, in this case, in bullish fashion. But so far it's looking pretty good, right? The same way kind of looked pretty good over here, right? Same idea. Again, like I mentioned, I'm looking for something similar to this move. And you can kind of do the same thing. Let's take a look, right? Measured move. This was the bottom of it. And this was the top of the flag. Oh, cool. And then we had the bull flag set up. Pretty much exactly the same thing we're doing here. And let's check out the measured move. We broke out pretty much right around here. And look at that. We pretty much made it to almost exactly the top of the measured move, which was around 360. We went to 367. Pretty close, right? Pretty close. So the idea for that, pretty similar, right? So same idea, right? Measured move, something like this, give or take. And then let's say we break out somewhere around here, right? Again, takes us somewhere into that potential massive resistance zone. So again, just one step at a time. Not, again, it doesn't mean that this has to happen. It doesn't mean it has to play out. But it's just something that seems to make sense, at least as of right now, assuming this formation holds and breaks out pretty nicely. Now, what do we want to see for this bullish potential to, play out, right? To actually make its way higher? What do we want to see? What are we looking for to give us, maybe stronger confirmations? Well, I would like to see, 1 hour candle closures or better, above the high 40s, 340s, I should say, to the low 350s, right? Pretty much this region right here. I want this region to break. If this region can break, I think we will get a nice move higher. And that should even further confirm that we're continuing, higher, right? So that'll be pretty much what I'm looking for, because you can see we got a double rejection here so far. So obviously if we get past that, well, naturally speaking, the bulls continue dominating, right? That's just kind of how things work, right? So again, let's continue moving forward with it. Let's continue monitoring it, because, how do stocks usually move in an uptrend? They do this, right? That's pretty much what we're doing. So we could be something like this right here. This was or rather even here or here, whatever. We had the first move. Now we have a consolidation. Then we have the next move, consolidate, right? Until obviously the pattern breaks and we do something like this instead, right? It's pretty simple stuff. And then you have obviously a bearish reversal right here. And then of course you do the same thing to the downside until, well, we do this. And then, for the most part, right? Again, this is a simplistic way of looking at it, but for the most part, that's kind of how it goes, right? More or less. So, again, one step at a time, let's continue following it, right? Let's continue monitoring it, right? Maybe things can change, things can flip. Tomorrow, I think, is OPEX actually. So we could get some pretty decent volatility tomorrow, right? Options, a lot of options expiring tomorrow. So we could get some wonky price action up and down. So be aware of that. But all in all, we're continuing to hold the key level down here at around the low 330s. And as long as that continues holding, I continue to remain bullish and, giving the bulls, definitely the benefit of the doubt here. Absolutely. So let's continue monitoring it. Let's continue seeing where it goes. And the good news also is the fact that we had that 9 exponential moving average, this green line. Remember, I kept talking about it catching up to price. Well, look where we bounced off. Almost, I can zoom in on it. And it was within literal 15-20 cents off of each other. Pretty close, right? Pretty close. So that just shows you the power of the EMA sometimes when you really get momentum starting to go. That's kind of how it works usually. And so far, yeah, it's looking pretty good as well. As long as we continue holding that, it's also looking pretty good, which is also sitting around 330. So a lot of support sitting around the low 330s, extremely high 220s, right? 229, let's say, to give it a bit of wiggle room. But again, if we lose that, then we can get pretty bearish pretty quickly. So I definitely don't want to lose that, but one step at a time. Top of us, having this cool off that occurred the past few days, developing what looks to be a bull flag on the 1 hour time frame. Like I said, so yeah, we had that 9 EMA catch up to price, which is very, very good. But also, what do we have on the 4 hour? Well, I mentioned we had that 4 hour SMI elevated. Remember when we were up here? This was like a day or two ago. It was elevated, right? And what do we do now? Pretty much the same thing we did back here. I used this example many times, right? Pretty much the exact same thing. Now, whether or not we get a pullback like this and we consolidate this long for the SMI to come all the way down here, well, that's another question entirely. We could, right? But what matters is the fact that it's finally cooling off. And even if it comes back even halfway, which is just maybe a little bit more sideways consolidation Friday, maybe Monday as well, that alone could be enough to bring the stock price and at least the SMI back down to levels where there's room for it to move up now. You know what I mean? We're not overheated too much. It's kind of like when you're, playing, one of those games where you have a flamethrower and you're just flamethrowing, blah, blah, blah. And then, the ammo running out essentially is the flamethrower getting too hot. What do you got to do? You got to calm down. You got to let, kind of turn it off for a bit, stop using it. The flamethrower cools off and then you can use it again. Think of it the same way. The flamethrower up here, yeah, it was a little bit hot. We had to kind of reload the ammo, if you will, on the flamethrower, let it cool off, and then we can continue using it again. Think of it in that same sort of analogy, if you will, right? So that's kind of how I look at it right now, and that's kind of what we're doing so far. Overall, I think it's playing out pretty textbook. I don't see any major concerns just yet. Now, obviously, we could get them, right? Like I said, if we start losing those key levels, we start painting a bit of a different picture here. But until that happens, I do have to, give bulls the benefit of the doubt here. We have a breakout of the pennant, and it's overall looking pretty solid. And the final thing I want to quickly mention on the weekly here is actually going to be something similar, where tomorrow we have a weekly candle closure, but you can see for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, right? All these 9 weeks, what do they have in common, right? What do they all have in common? Well, if I take this little situation like this, you can see, right? Each and every single one of them closed essentially below this box right here, right? Every single one of them closed below this box, right? We couldn't, even though we had wicks above them, like for instance, this one right here, we had a nice large wick way above it. But what do we end up doing regardless? We ended up still closing pretty much below, again, this sort of, 330s, mid to low 330s region. So what I want to see, right? And same thing here, we got into that range and we closed well below that. So I would like to see a weekly candle closure pretty much starting tomorrow above 330 at least, 335 or higher, even better, right? And if we can get something that looks like that, not only do we now officially break this pattern where we just, despite having strength midweek, we continue closing week on the week, if that makes sense, weakness on the week, below 330 roughly, give or take, right? Now we're going to have the first weekly candle that finally takes this massive range that was resisting us for just forever and ever and ever and ever. 9 weeks, very long time. That's like 2 months, right? It's very long. And then we finally get a weekly candle closure above it. Another potential positive sign developing that Tesla, it's finally ready to move higher. So let's see how this plays out. Let's see how the week closes tomorrow. But just something else worth mentioning and worth keeping your mind on, right? A lot of information, but hopefully it all kind of makes sense and hopefully I'm not overcomplicating too much. And I guess the final thing is the MACD is getting a nice potential bullish crossover on the weekly, which is also a good sign to see. So all in all, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. I do have to sneeze. Okay, I was trying to finish the video off before I had to sneeze, but now that I sneezed, we might as well finish off with options here. Yeah, options flow, take a look. And yeah, end of day, nice bullish flow came in for 8:15, which is of course tomorrow. So the bulls are definitely looking to have a nice field day on Tesla stock tomorrow, going into OPEX. A lot of options expiring tomorrow, right? It's always the third Friday of every month. Tomorrow's the third Friday of this month. So you get some volatility, but the bulls seem to be stepping in. So let's see how that plays out into tomorrow. 1.2 million call as well for 325 strike September 19th. Also not a bad sign to see. But all in all, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.